Hello everyone. I've just had a meeting with my oncologist, Dr. Kuznir, and I thought I'd let you know some of the things that we've discussed and discovered and, what else is happening in my life as a little update, because I feel like, I haven't done many updates recently, so here goes. So first of all, today I'm testing a new microphone, namely this one here, which is a tiny little wireless job that is called the Ulanzi J12. And it costs less than $50 on Amazon, which is kind of cool. It comes in two different versions. One connects directly to your iPhone, and another one connects to phones and devices with a USB-C port. So those two options are available. I might actually get a second one. So I don't have it on me right now, but it's a little box, a little charging box that contains the adapter, that the receiver at the other end, and two microphones that come in a little charging box. And that's a really nice little, neat little design. You charge that up and then this thing communicates to whatever is connected to my iPhone, which is recording this. And, it sounds much better than the built-in GoPro microphone. And I've bought this partly because recently I've had this one too many times that my plug-in mic, the cable mic, just didn't record directly on the GoPro. Initially, I was looking for solutions that don't require me to have a second audio feed to be recorded, because it's more work in editing to sync those things up. But the problem is that if that internal mic doesn't record, then I have no audio on the video, and sometimes I say important things, and I don't want to re-record them. So it is kind of nice to have that backup, and syncing is fairly automatic in Premiere anyway, so it's not a problem. So I thought I'm going to test that out. Also with the wind, so I'm getting a little bit of wind, a bit of noise around here. Initial tests suggest that it maybe records a little bit too low on a lower level, but hey, one of those things. So that's number one. Number two, my doctor's visit. So very interesting. Over the last year or so, I've been getting kind of weird abdominal pains that don't exactly relate to food intake. And it happened so sporadically at first that I didn't really detect the pattern as such. I just thought, well, it's, whatever that was, perhaps it was a bit of food poisoning, we say no more about it. But over the last, I'd say 6 months, this has happened more and more frequently. And the pain is quite severe when it happens. So it's something that happens kind of above my belly button, from my belly button upwards to the bottom of my rib cage, basically. And it can happen either literally an hour after a meal, or it can happen like 4, 5, 8 hours after a meal. And sometimes in the middle of the night, I wake up and I'm thinking, oh, geez, what's happening here? And the pain usually subsides within an hour or two, but when it comes, it's fairly severe, and that is obviously not good. And me having had abdominal issues in the past, I thought my oncologist should know about this. So I tried to set up a meeting last year. Turns out I didn't get the referral. Turns out I needed to get an appointment with my general practitioner, which has now happened. So I've got the referral now. Finally had my appointment with my oncologist. A long story short, as it always goes with healthcare things, I've now had my appointment. But my primary did blood work about 3 weeks ago, and everything was okay. Cholesterol tiny bit high, but only a tiny bit. That's so it's not really that big an issue, but I decided to course correct so that less carbs, less saturated fats, just to keep that back in line. I think it was supposed to be not higher than 90, and mine was about 95, so it really isn't a big issue. It was only a little bit over, but cholesterol issue for all of us. So but more importantly, what the blood work showed was that I may be suffering from a tiny bout of hypothyroidism. So that means my thyroid meds are perhaps a little bit too strong than they need to be. And it's never been an issue. I've been on 150 micrograms for almost 5 years now, and it's working really well for me. So I don't have any other issues like sleep things and whatnot. So usually if you have hypo means or hyper. I think one is over, one is under. Mine's the one that's over. I forgot which one's which. And so if you have too much thyroid hormones in your blood, either because your meds are too high or because your thyroid is producing too much, then that means you feel restless and feel you have insomnia and that sort of thing. I don't really have that. Very occasionally, but I don't think that's related. But the other way around, if you had not enough thyroid hormones in your body, then that means your voice kind of goes much deeper. You feel lethargic, you feel tired all the time, you tend to develop water retention in all kinds of interesting parts of your body. So yeah, so mine was corrected as a result, and 150 seemed to be working, and that was a little bit too high. So that means either my thyroid has come back to life, which my oncologist says he doesn't believe so. He thinks it's pretty flat and it's not coming back. But you know, I don't know why my medication now no longer works. So I'm thinking maybe my thyroid has come back a little bit, and as such is producing some thyroid hormones that you know, are now happening in addition to the meds I'm getting. So we've dropped that down a little bit, and that can sometimes also lead to digestive issues. So I was kind of hoping that that might be the cause of it, but as I described my abdominal pains to Dr. Kuzne, he says, yeah, that sounds like a very common side effect of abdominal surgery, in that the bowels do not want to be disturbed when you fiddle around with them. So if ever you have something like that, abdominal surgery, even 5 or 10 years after the actual surgery, you can develop something called lesions. And lesions are little tiny strands of muscle tissue that seem to grow and in places that weren't there before, as basically something like scar tissue. And that means the tissue is no longer as flexible as it was before. So that means if you digest food and something moves around, these lesions can sometimes get disturbed and as such cause issues and pain. And he says there's really nothing we can do about this other than, you know, surgery, and then cut them up basically, so that you know, that you don't have that anymore. But he says I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend you disturb that fragile ecosystem that is the abdomen. And I'm thinking, yeah, I don't really look forward to having surgery to correct that. I don't think it happens quite often enough anyway to warrant that. So I've started, before I saw Dr. Kuznia, I wasn't sure what it was, and I wasn't sure if it was food related or not. So is it something, am I all of a sudden lactose intolerant, or, you know, am I not tolerant to certain types of cheeses or yogurt anymore, something like that. And so I've started eating kind of smaller quantities to see if that keeps the pain at bay. And it seems to work all right. So it's one of those things that I'm trying to manage without having to go into surgery. But yeah, it is just another sign of getting old, I guess. Speaking of getting old, there is one thing that Julia was more concerned about than I am, and that is that sometimes, like, I have these less than 1 millimeter large dark red spots on my body increasingly, and it looks like they're called cherry myomas, and they are something that's quite common, completely benign, super harmless, but it is something that white guys get when they get older, and especially on the fair bits of their skin. So my arms are fairly tanned and they don't have it, but the rest of my body seems to develop these little red spots, and you know, we thought we'd bring it to his attention. So anyway, that was kind of the rundown. So less dosage on the thyroid medication, 137 instead of 150, starting probably tomorrow morning, and I'll let you all know how that goes. Yes, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time. Take care. Off we go.